Welcome back. Aswan, the land of gold, is now the topic we are going to discuss. As Aswan is celebrating on the 15th of January, the National Day. That coincides with commemorating the opening of the High Dam 53 years ago. Well, to shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to have with us over the phone our dear guest, Dr. Zeina Salem, tour guide and researcher. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, Dr. Salem, could you give us an idea about choosing the 15th of January to be the National Day of Aswan, commemorating the opening of the High Dam?
As you just explained, it was like a big event because the High Dam was a very challenging project in the modern history of Egypt. And in the meantime, it was also a challenge for so many monuments that has to be rescued before the finishing of the High Dam. So it was kind of like a link between our ancient past and also our modern history and challenges that we had to face at the time. And it's changed the core of history and the scenery in all of Aswan. So therefore, it also provided so many jobs and changed the whole scene in Aswan, as I said, when it comes to like industry, electricity, farming, displacing some communities. So it was kind of like challenge, and it was therefore it was chosen for such a challenge, and how it has been turned into some kind of prosperity and welfare to the whole inhabitants of Aswan.
Yes. So, Dr. Salem, the Aswan is a very unique and special governorate, not only for the monuments. It's there's the Nile there, the color of the water there, the Nile is completely different. For example, from Cairo, Aswan has a special atmosphere. Give us an idea about the view
Yes,
there.
so true. It's so true. Like Aswan, and as they call it, the pearl of the Nile, and it's very picturesque. That's because of the so many islands,
Yes.
and the fact that it has also the cataracts, these big blocks of granite that turn the water into totally different colors, something we don't have in any other places of Egypt. And Aswan, the name itself was like derived from an ancient Egyptian word swan, which means marketplace, because the location of Aswan makes it a very important city in the ancient modern as well, because it was just like the hub of Africa. So therefore, it was very exotic city full of goods that comes from Africa. So that was very important reason, and that's why, for example, we have an island, Elephantine, which is was very famous in the ancient times for its ivory trade, which would come from Africa, and the fact that Elephantine Island looks like an elephant somehow made some of the Greek call it so, and even its ancient name was written with the determinative, I mean, in hieroglyphics of an elephant. So the fact that these big islands protruding in the middle of the water give it different scenery than what we see, and made it very magical, especially if you do like a felucca ride on the Nile. So it's a very relaxing city, being the smallest city of all of Egypt, I mean, population-wise, and that makes it also quiet and easy and slow, and kind of nice just to end the trip when you visit Egypt with Aswan. Besides also the fact that it has all these big palm trees, dome trees, and its botanical gardens, because of all the silt that has been accumulated for thousands and thousands of years, provide good atmosphere or good soil for farming. That makes it very also unique, that you have the blue turquoise somehow water with these big blocks of granite in the background of the green and a little bit of the desert across the west bank of Aswan makes it really a special place to visit.
Yes. Also, before we go to the monuments and the famous monuments and antiquities that Aswan is very famous of, Aswan encompasses a large number of hotels that are very unique and very old, and was built since the year 18,000 and the early 19,000, and was also a place for the winter season of the Kerevi, for example. So give us an also idea about this, like the
Okay,
cataract
so
and
yeah,
yes.
we have, of course, and since Aswan, as I said, was like very, very beautiful, the bride of the Nile, and its weather is very dry, so it was a destination for many European in 19th century, as you just mentioned. So those European, as during that time, the places that you would stay in was more like palaces. It was more like a guest houses, and therefore later on, after the nationalization, they have turned into hotels. For example, the Old Cataract Hotel, as you just mentioned, dates back to the 19th century, and it's very famous. It has 1903 restaurant, which is like overlooking the beautiful tip of Aswan. And it's very famous because when you go there and you walk around the halls, you see pictures like Wall of Fame, where very famous world leaders, European and Americans, Arabs have stayed there. Celebrities like even like Princess Diana, Kulthum, Agatha Christie wrote Death on the Nile in one of the rooms of or the suites of this hotel. So the hotel itself is really like really historical. So just going there, even if you're not staying there, if you just go there and take a tour and see its beautiful historical suites and palaces and pictures of people who stayed there, it's really worth it. Besides just like sitting there in the terrace, watching the sun going down, it's really also a beautiful thing that I always recommend that people should do, even if they don't stay in this hotel.
Yes, Dr. Salem, let's start with the monuments, of course, in Aswan, like the Fila Temple, which is one of the very important touristic attractions there, and the story of that it was drowned by the water Nile, and it was saved after this.
Yeah, like the Philae Temple, it's located, used to be on the island of Philae, but because of building the high dam, it was submerged. Therefore, they have to move it piece by piece. They cut the whole temple, and then they move it to a higher island, the island of Ejalika now. So Philae Temple was mainly dedicated to goddess Isis, and the queen, the Ptolemaic queen, Arsinoe Philadelphus, and that's why it has the term Philae, and it's part of the word like love, because this princess or queen Arsinoe was the beloved of her brother, that's Philadelphus, and that's why the name of the temple is Philae, even though they say sometimes it's from the word Bilek, which means border. And Philae, as I said, it was dedicated to goddess Isis, and there Isis was venerated for thousands and thousands of years until this temple that was one of the focal points of pilgrims for thousands of years was shut down by the order of the Emperor Justinian in the 6th century, where he sent his troops and they killed the priests and they commit a massacre, and therefore the temple has been turned into a church. But the temple still bears the beautiful carving of goddess Isis, where most of the kings are just like venerating her. Because of building this temple, the Ptolemaic in Egypt, the Macedonian kings were able to rule for 300 years. Because Isis, yes, the great goddess, was considered the regent of Egypt's throne. So she was the one who crowned the king Ptolemy II and made him the king of Egypt, and therefore all her successors were keen to keep this link with goddess Isis, keep this link with this temple. So many of them has built and added addition to the temple. So the temple has been really enlarged for almost 300 years, and even in the early years of the Romans, they added many new temples to the temple until parts of it has been turned into a church, as I mentioned. But it's really one of the gems of the Ptolemaic architecture in Egypt, and it's mainly dedicated to goddess Isis.
Yes, and Dr. Salem, also we take a boat or a felucca to reach to the Philae temple. And also going to other monuments and famous sites there in Aswan, you go by the boat. So this is very amazing, of course. One of the things that we go by boat also in Aswan is the island of plants or unique plants and trees. It lies on the Nile shore in Aswan, and it's amazing. It really encompasses a large number of very unique plants and trees. So give us an idea about it also.
Yeah, the Kitchener Island, or the Botanical Island or garden, is quite famous for its unique and trees and plants, and it's visited by both local and foreigners. As you mentioned, it has very unique collection of trees that's quite old, and also flowers, huge big trees of like acacia and domes and so forth. And the location itself, just like sitting there, enjoy the serenity of nature while it's embracing the beautiful Nile. And as you mentioned, because there are many islands around the Aswan, that's why taking a felucca or a motorboat is one of the means of reaching out to these places, which is really an amazing experience, because this is how also you get in touch with the local community there, and you will get also to see, sometimes they just like sing for you, play drums, and also offer their local products for sale while you're taking these boat rides, which is quite interesting. However, there is also some islands that you can reach by a ferry crossing, like a ferry boat, local ones, where you can meet people going to work, like ordinary people who live on these islands, because these islands are not just for tourists, but it's also inhabited by local people.
Yes, I thank you. Unfortunately, our time is up. We have many things to speak about. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information. Dr. Zeina Salem, the tour guide and researcher, thank you very much for joining us over the phone. Well, with this, my dear viewers, we come to the end of this episode of our program, The Breakfast Show. My name is Amal Mukhtar. Thank you for watching.